Okay, here's my rewrite of Twilight. I keep most of the opening the same until Bella gets into school. I'd have it be talked about how Bella is only getting a lot of attention because she's just a new face in a small town, and that the last person they got was super weird. Bella pressing the issue and finding out that the guy's name was Edward Cullens, seeing him for the first time in the lunchroom, where one of her friends tells her about how Edward is the youngest of his family and the last one to be enrolled. This entire time he had been homeschooled. Everyone cracking jokes at the fact that now he's a super socially awkward weirdo and nobody really wants to interact with him. Bella feeling bad for this guy, her also being new and not knowing if these friends are truly friends or just superficially interested in her. Her deciding to go sit with Edward. She notices that he doesn't have any food and she offers him some of hers, him rejecting but saying thank you. Them having a bit of small talk until the bell rings and them realizing that they are going to the exact same class and sitting together, continuing their little conversation, resulting in Bella getting Edward to smile. At the end of the school day, Edward passes her on the way out and gives her a note before running off into the woods. Bella's friends all laugh at this, but she's under the impression that Edward is just neurodivergent. When she goes home, she sees the note as Edward expressing his utmost thanks to the fact that she tolerated his presence, was kind to him, even offered him food, and he drew her a beautiful portrait of herself. After this, their relationship grows closer and closer. Mind you, in the background, murders are happening around Forks that Charlie is investigating. Eventually, there's the vampire scene, and I wouldn't have Edward sparkle. That feels too Fae-like to me. I don't know what to tell you. I'd have it instead that he just reveals his fangs. And when Bella accepts him, he is shocked by this, and that night goes into a room to which she chastises him because, no dude, you can't do that, that's creepy. When meeting the family, Rosalie pulls Bella aside and tells her the reason why Edward was homeschooled for so long was because at their last home he had expressed interest in the girl, revealed his true nature, and got them chased out of town. She talks about how everything is on shaky ground right now because these murders that have been going on have been done by vampires, but none of their clan. However, the local werewolf pack does not believe them. It happened instead of the 3 rejected Black Eyed Peas members, that is just one rogue vampire that is essentially trying to screw over the Cullens because they are not embracing their true nature, being vegetarian. I'd also have it that Bella, Edward, and Jacob all hang out together, and Edward and Jacob have the realization that neither of them are human. This would all end with the pack accusing the Cullens saying that they didn't actually do these killings, Bella sticking up for the Cullens, and then the one taken is not Bella's mother, but Charlie. The lone vampire doing this, expressing how the Cullens have gone soft, have rejected their true nature, and that other vampires are also mad at them. I'd also have it shown that the Cullens are weaker in terms of vampires because of their diet. However, they manage to defeat the vampire, Bella gets bit, but it's reversed, and there's prom and a tentative peace between the werewolves and vampires. I didn't have time to mention in my last video, but Bella wasn't the only one that stood up for the Cullens. Jacob also stood up for the Cullens. And this one I'd have it open with Bella and Edward essentially trying to help Jacob with shifting, him feeling kind of insecure that he hasn't done it yet, and Bella telling him that sometimes control takes time. Also, Bella and Jacob are strictly platonic in this. Also, post-kidnapping, Charlie now knows there's supernatural creatures running around Forks and that his daughter's dating one and best friends with another. Bella and Edward have been growing closer and closer, and Edward proposes to Bella, but she rejects them, stating how they've only been together for like a year. He's hurt by this, but accepts her no, and on her birthday, they have it at Bella's house. Towards the end of the celebration, Jacob tells Bella to go outside, where he shifts for the first time and offers her a ride on his back, even telling Edward that he can run alongside him just in case Bella flies off. They're running through the woods, they're laughing, they're joking. At one point, Bella decides to get off and run herself when she slips and cuts her hand on a rock. Edward immediately runs over to tend to her, and she notices him staring at her intently until he grabs her and bites her. Bella screams. Jacob runs in, knocking Edward off of her. He gets in front of Bella and begins to guard her. Edward begins to try and apologize profusely. Bella, the shock slowly wearing off, begins to tell Jacob it was just an accident, he really not believing that, and Edward, ashamed, running off into the woods. Jacob brings Bella back home to where the Cullens ask where Edward is. Bella tells them what happened, and they run off to go find him. Carlisle stays behind, though, and tends to Bella's wounds and tells her that he's really sorry, but this can happen. Edward's young, he's still learning control. Jacob is on full hate vampires mode and says that's bullshit. After a few days, Bella doesn't hear anything from the Cullens, so she goes to their house and sees that they're all in a frenzy over the fact they can't find Edward. He's blocked off their mind to them. Alice can't even see him. Furthermore, the werewolf and vampire relations have broken down once more, and now both parties have become incredibly territorial, kicking the other off their land. Bella essentially goes to Jacob and begs him to help, knowing that with his werewolf nose he might be able to send out Edward to find him. Eventually Jacob caves, and they actually find Edward in the ruins of the old Cullens' home. This was the place where Edward revealed his true nature, got rejected by the girl, and it turns out they burned the Cullens' house down. Edward has essentially been sitting in the ruins hoping to starve to death, and reveals to Bella that he didn't bite her because he was hungry. He bit her because he wanted to be with her forever, and he feels really bad that he tried to take that choice away from her. Bella telling him that that's something they have to talk about and work on and not something he can simply run away from. Her telling Edward that her initial no to his proposal was just a not right now. Edward vows to start communicating more. They all feel better about their relationship. Jacob jokingly says he'll bite Edward's head off if he does it again, and the triumvirate make it back to Forks just in time to stop an all-out war. And all is peaceful, for now. Rewrite Edward is not like 117. Anyway, we would begin with Edward and Bella graduating for the first time. Edward, super giddy because it's the first time he's able to graduate high school. He's doing it alongside Bella, and he can't wait to go to college with her. Bella equally as excited, and they throw their graduation caps, and then we cut to 3 years later. Bella is studying biology, whereas Edward is studying ancient history, and Jacob is about to graduate high school. The trio still makes time to hang out in the woods of Forks, where one day they stumble upon a pile of dead bodies. Jacob and Edward are horrified because they recognize that these were done by vampires, and they run to go tell Charlie because, police got to do their shenanigans. They rationalize that with this amount of bodies, this could have not been done by a singular vampire, and then a feeling of dread begins to set in. Now, peace has been established for a long time between the Cullens and the pack, so the Cullens aren't under suspicion. I believe Charlie is one of those dads that would bring his work home with him, so obviously Bella gets into the case files. She notices how some of the bite marks only have 2 holes, where there are others with 4. Then, more of these piles of bodies begin to pop up around the county, not just in the woods of Forks, but in the neighboring cities and towns. At this, Bella realizes that they are not just a pack eating, they are trying to gain strength. She takes her finding of the 4-pronged fangs to the Cullens, to which Carlisle freaks out and says that all of the family needs to leave. He says that those markings were made by an ancient one, a vampire that is over a millennia old. He says how if they are building an army and draining blood to gain strength, that means that they are probably going to commit an assault on Forks and slaughter as many as they can. Bella rationalizes that just because the Cullens might have brought these vampires here, it does not mean that them leaving will take the vampires with them, and says that if they leave, they're just letting the people of Forks be slaughtered. Through some calculations, they rationalize that it is at least one ancient with 20 underlings. With the help of the pack, they should be able to take out the underlings, but it is the ancient one that has everyone worried, to which Bella brings up the fact that there are weapons now. She begins to ask questions about vampire allergies, about what they are susceptible to, about what can be used against them. With this information, she goes to her father, who helps her make weapons and trains her to shoot. Alice still has her vision, and she says how they're going to attack on the eclipse, which they do. However, luckily for the Cullens, the werewolves, as well as Charlie and Bella and the other few humans that they have brought along with them, they have the home advantage, them knowing the woods of Forks far better than these intruders. With that, they are able to wipe out the 20 underlings, leaving only the ancient one. Also, the ancient one is Jane. She commends Bella and says that she is probably one of the most deserving humans of their gift. She gives the Cullens 1 year to turn Bella, start drinking human blood, or she and the other ancients, aka the Volturi, will come back and slaughter them. Then she leaves. In this, she is half Quileute on her mother's side, and that is one of the reasons she is back in Forks, is to reconnect with her tribe. Furthermore, in my narrative, Edward is Algonquin. We open with the Cullens, Charlie, as well as the pack trying to figure out what to do, seeing as how Jane says they have 1 year to turn Bella into a vampire and to begin drinking human blood again. Because Edward is the youngest, they aren't too worried about him drinking human blood again, but he's worried about everyone else in the families because they have gone for decades to hundreds of years without touching the stuff, and they're afraid if they drink it, they might become frenzied. They deduce that they're slowly going to have to reintroduce human blood into their diet, and Bella brings up the fact that because Carlisle is a doctor, they can ethically source it. Having blood drives and stuff like that, and, donating half of it, but also keeping the other half. Then it comes to the discussion of turning Bella. In my version of the story, I would change how vampires are made. It's not just a simple bite. It is a near draining of blood and then the injection of vampire venom. And that this process, if done incorrectly, can result in death. And that the only 2 members in the Cullens family that have successfully turned somebody is Carlisle and Rosalie. Rosalie was actually the one that turned Edward, and they say she is the safest bet of turning Bella because Carlisle might fuck up and drain Bella, accidentally being reintroduced to human blood after hundreds of years of not having it. Rosalie, however, says she's not going to turn Bella yet, to which everyone's kind of like, girl, we need to do this! Bella, however, knows that there's more to this than that, and she goes and talks to Rosalie and finds out that one of the reasons she's scared of doing it is because she almost killed Edward when she turned him. And I am going to make a 3-minute video discussing Edward's whole deal. And this is where we would get into Rosalie's backstory, where she was assaulted and left for dead, and I'd have it that Esme is the one who finds her and brings her home. Carlisle and her showing her kindness and taking care of her and offering the gift, to which she uses to, slaughter her ex and his terrible friends, as she should! This is the first time Bella and Rosalie have really been able to connect. Bella talks about how even though Rosalie has not always been nice to her, she has always been kind, and she trusts her to turn her. She trusts her to know when to stop. Rosalie is kind of shocked by this, and they spend more time talking to each other. They come out of the discussion with Rosalie essentially stating that she will change Bella. However, they're going to wait for Bella to graduate college, which is coming up, and for her and Edward to get married. Of course, this is more about healing Rosalie and her kind of living vicariously through Bella, and Bella's kind of cool with that because Rosalie deserves it. And at half of that post-discussion, Edward and Bella go out into the woods, and Bella proposes to Edward, which he immediately says yes. Unbeknownst to them, within the forest, there are vampires spying on them for the Volturi. We open with Renee coming back to Forks and being chastised by Bella for not telling her that there was lycanthropy within their tribe, to which Renee reveals that Forks being a small town with low opportunities was not the sole reason she left. It turns out that Bella's bloodline is the last one with the ability to bear female werewolves. Essentially, it's kind of like colorblindness, how guys are more susceptible to it because they got that Y and they don't got that extra X chromosome. However, when a female werewolf is born, they are known to be a lot stronger, a lot faster, better hunters, and better fighters. Renee being the last female werewolf of the tribe, and her moving away because she didn't want Bella to feel any pressure that she felt growing up. She also tells Charlie that one of the reasons she didn't tell him is because she was afraid of being rejected. The whole family reconciles, Bella has her graduation, and then we cut to the Cullens beginning to reintroduce human blood into their diet. Essentially, they start with the youngest, aka the person who last had human blood, in this case Edward, and begin with animal blood and then start putting more and more human blood into it till it is pure human. They're also in the family basement with concrete walls, and they do this one at a time. That way, if someone does go into a frenzy, the entire family can, take them down. So they start with Edward and with Carlisle, and then once everyone is acclimated to drinking human blood again, they then have the wedding. It's beautiful, everyone's happy, and on the wedding night, Rosalie turns Bella into a vampire. Also, I should mention Bella is 22, 23 at this point. After this, it's Bella acclimating to being a vampire, where everyone notices she is a lot stronger than most newborns. She has control of her power near instantly, which confuses everybody, but Carlisle deduces it must have something to do with the werewolf in her. I should also say one of the reasons Renee allowed Bella to come back to Forks is because Bella was past the age when Renee first shifted, so she kind of assumed the gene skipped her. Jane comes back and says, "Wonderful, now you all are strong enough to murder all the werewolves." To which the Cullens were like, huh? Of course they say no, there's a big fight, and it's actually Carlisle, Esme, and Bella who manage to take Jane down. She then leaves, and of course this means all-out war. So it's the Cullens, the werewolves, as well as some humans with Charlie that are using, weapons, and as well as some other vampires who have joined their side. Then of course you got the Volturi and their underlings, and there is a big old fight. During this fight, Bella shifts into her wolf form and starts ripping people apart, including some of the Volturi. Everyone's fucking horrified by this because a newborn who also is able to shift into a werewolf just ripped an ancient one apart. So of course they run away. And it turns out one of the reasons Bella shifted is because she is pregnant. Essentially the mama bear gene just kicked in. After this, the traditional vampires are like, alright, fuck you guys, we're not messing with this. After this, everyone is living happily ever after, and Jacob is a very good uncle to little Robitussin. No imprinting. None of that.